going on, guys? Welcome to the LowKick MMA Weekly Roundup. I'm your host, Ryan Galloway, here with Jordan Ellis. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today, and I think we're going to start with the boxing. Floyd Mayweather took on Logan Paul earlier today for me, yesterday night for most of the world. It was a really interesting bout. I don't think it was the result, and a lot of people were expecting. I think a lot of people expected it to have been a knockout either way, but it went the distance. Jordan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Logan Paul comes out with a lot of credit. I expected Floyd to run through him. I know people talked about the size, but I didn't see him to be an issue. Logan Paul is an novice. Floyd Mayweather is one of the best ever. Like, the size shouldn't have been an issue really, but it seemed to. It was. I think Logan was. I mean, Floyd was trying his best to get him out there. I think I'm seeing a lot of people online saying he carried them and he allowed him to go that far, which I don't agree with. I think from the third round onwards, he was really trying to take his head off, but it just didn't work. So, props to Logan. He's made a bunch of money and he's went the distance with one of the best ever. And Floyd, he's happy. I don't think he's already said he doesn't care about his legacy. It's not about that. It's about making as much money as possible. And I'm sure they did. I'm sure they made a boatload of money, but it's not. It wasn't a great fight for the fans. It was, it was a clear mismatch, and it didn't gel at all. But they both got what they wanted from it, I think.
There's a funny quote that Floyd said in the press conference. He said, "Money will feed my children, legacy won't," which was really interesting, and it really tells a lot about why he took the fight. But as far as the actual fight goes, I don't think I said on Twitter, I don't think that it showed any impressive boxing skill from Logan Paul. It showed that he had a huge size advantage. It showed that he was able to stick to the game plan early because he was sticking behind that jab for the first 3 or 4 rounds of that fight. And he was doing really good work. I think he won the first 2. Floyd just couldn't get close enough to land anything. But once he got tired, you saw the hands come down and Floyd was able to tee off a little bit. And another thing to give him credit about is he's durable, right? Because Floyd landed a couple of good shots there. And I mean, someone could have gone down if they had a glass chin. He clearly doesn't. But as far as boxing potential, I don't see it with him. I see it more with his brother, not really with him.
Yeah, and I don't think I think that was the only way he could do what he was trying to do. Obviously, he got to the final bell and no winners declared. So is it technically a draw, even though Floyd did clearly outclass him? So it's I think he did the best he could do. I honestly expected Floyd to go out and finish him. And I was very surprised that he didn't. But he made it hard. Like he was threatening him with counters. He was closing the distance and leaning on him and using his weight. He was doing some smart, journeyman type things to survive, and he survived. I think that was, in terms of how well the night could have went for Logan realistically. But obviously he weren't gonna crack him and knock him out. So in terms of how good the night could have went, I think it went as good as possible for him.
But that's the thing, if there's no points, why not just grab him and clinch and put that weight on him? Because you're not going to get a point deducted, It's not like they get a call off the fight in the main event between these two guys. So he should have just been abusing that more. And he really did in that later half of the fight. When he was tired, that's what he went to. So props to him. Jake Paul was beside the octagon. He claims that his brother won the fight. I think 99% of people would disagree with him. 99% of people saw it how it was, that Floyd took the last 6 rounds or 5 rounds if you really want to be generous. But what did you think of Jake Paul being there? His old demeanor. He was on the camera nonstop. He was really there to sell his next fight, but they didn't even show Woodley once. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, he was there, doing his thing and being silly as he is. But he wasn't even meant to be in the stadium, was he? After he took Floyd's hat, so I'm sure he's got Paul there, and we look forward to his next one because I think Woodley against Paul is it's a better fight, and it's matching them right, matching them, skill be skill. It pays off because on the undercard we had a couple of good fights where it was really well matched, and this just wasn't. And it's cool. I think Jake Paul, as you said, has got more of a career. Like he's more talented with it, I think. But credit to Logan, he survived. He did what I think he's the winner. I don't think Floyd takes any credit from this. I think he can say all he wants. Oh, it's an exhibition. I was coming to make money. He was trying to get the finish and he couldn't get it. So, props to Logan for surviving.
And I mean, there was plenty of good fights. I mean, there was 3 on the undercard before the main event, and they were all pretty decent. I thought the not the co-main, the one before that, I thought was really impressive. A bit of a war. I can't remember the name of the fighter, but man, the dude had a chin on him. It was a good showcase for those guys to be on this card with these big names, get their names out there a little bit to audience that wouldn't usually be watching. I think we'll just finish covering this boxing stuff now and then move on to just MMA towards the end. So I will bring it up. Tyron Woodley, Jake Paul, August 28th. Thoughts on the matchup? How do you think it goes?
It's a live opponent. Like Ben Askren, we thought he might be able to do something, but in reality, he was, coming off the couch. Not only was he coming off the couch, he had like reconstructive hip surgery or some type of major surgery that brought his career to an end. So that's 2 years injured. He hadn't been doing anything, and then besides that, he's a wrestler's entire career. So the odds were really stacked against him, and I think it was meant to make Jake look how he looked. Whereas Tyron, he might have been losing, but he's been in there with top guys. He's a puncher. He nearly had Luke in the last fight. I feel like he's got more to give than Ben Askren. It's a good fight. I think if Jake Paul comes through this one, I think he really is off to the races, because it's a really good test, good challenge. Someone who's punched, who's got power. I obviously am leaning to Tyron. I think we haven't really seen Jake take a punch, and I think if you're going to be taking your first punch, Tyron Woodley's maybe not the guy to be taking it from. So I think Tyron might be able to crack him and finish him, but he is a bit shot shy lately. He potentially could gas. He's not a boxer, a lot. So it's a very interesting. For me, it's a 50-50 fight, and it's just too heavy a lean towards.
Yeah, and look, I mean, even when people were taking Askren in that fight, I know you predicted Askren would take that one. You never thought he was going to outbox Jake Paul. You thought it was going to be dirty boxing, like clinching, that kind of stuff. No one for a second thought that Ben Askren was going to outbox this kid. So in terms of Tyron Woodley's boxing skill, that's a real threat to him, because Woodley, he can box, I guess he's predominantly a wrestler, but look, in the later stage of his career, he relied on his striking mostly. And I think it's a pretty fair fight. I don't know who I'd really take, to be honest, because there's a difference between MMA, striking, and boxing. And Jake Paul's been boxing for 3 years. And Tyron, I don't know how much boxing training he's been doing in amongst his camp and everything. And he claims that for this boxing fight, he's going to do an MMA camp. He said he's going to focus on boxing, but he's going to train his jiu-jitsu and his kickboxing as well, which to me doesn't make a lot of sense. But I think it might just be for cardio and like keeping fit purposes more than anything. The one thing that's kind of an X factor is that Mayweather said that he'd like to have Tyron in his gym training for this fight. And I think that's a good move, because when you go in there with MMA coaches, regardless of their backgrounds in boxing, they're not had the experience coaching boxers for all these years. But if you go into a gym like Mayweather's gym where they've only coached boxers, I feel like they're going to have a better idea of what you need on the night. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's the move. I think, you need to go and engross yourself in boxing. I don't like that idea about doing an MMA camp and jiu-jitsu and all these things. I think just for a couple of months, focus on boxing, get your footwork a bit different, keep your hands high, because in MMA, a lot of people have the hands a bit lower so they can anticipate the takedown. So he needs to just, there'll be a few bad habits that he got into from being an MMA fighter that he probably will need to get rid of, and going to a boxing camp's the best way to do that. But for me, his route to victory is just kind of keep his hands high, allow Jake Paul to blow his load, and then start tagging him, because Jake Paul is not some crazy athlete. Like, you've seen Logan, yes, he's ripped to shreds, but Jake Paul isn't that guy. He's 190 pounds, but he's not exactly an Adonis on the scale. So I think he can, if he can weather the early storm, keep his arms tight, not make any stupid mistakes, and then he eventually will get to him. And this is what I was saying about Askren, is that this guy is not an athlete. He's not done what these guys have done. And if they can just endure the early spurt, I think they'll win. And I think Woodley can win that way. But it remains to be seen, and it is a good fight, and it's finally, I think it is a really live opponent. So yeah, if Paul comes through this one, I think it's got to be a boxing X after that one. But Woodley, I think he's very capable of ending it all here and just shutting down the whole Jake Paul show.
Well, the thing is, from this past weekend, this Mayweather and Logan Paul fight that really stood out to me was obviously the size difference, right? And then you talk about how Jake Paul's been calling out Conor McGregor nonstop. If Jake Paul can beat Tyron Woodley in a boxing match, I know the MMA community is going to disagree with me here, but I don't like Conor's chances. Just because Conor's so much smaller than Tyron and he's so much smaller than Jake Paul. Yes, he's a striker as well, but again, he's like a kickboxing, karate style striker. He's not a boxer. And I think that he would struggle against someone with as much reach advantage on him as a Jake Paul. Unless Jake Paul gets done by Woodley, then maybe I can think the boxing skill outweigh it. But if he passes Woodley, I just see him beating probably a lot of the MMA guys. And like you said, I want to see him take a boxer, maybe a Tommy Fury next or something like that. And just on Tommy Fury, he looked human in his last fight. It's not like this guy's his brother. He's not going out there and just demolishing people. In his fight that was Friday night, I believe, or this past weekend, whenever it was, he had a bit of a war. It wasn't like he went out there and starched the dude. So it is realistic for me to imagine a scenario if Jake Paul gets past Woodley where he takes that fight and it not be a wash.
Yeah, it's a big ask. I think Tommy Fury's the fight to make after this if he beats Woodley. For me, Tommy's got, he's a big celebrity over here. He's got the Fury connection. He's got everything to offer, and he's a prospect. He's unbeaten. So, obviously Tommy had a tougher fight on the weekend. But let's be honest, the guy who he was in with would have beat everyone Jake Paul's beat. Probably. And some of his other journeyman opponents. I know people are like saying, "Oh, the bin men," or the this and that, but they are more live than Jake Paul's opponents. Jake Paul's opponents might as well be in, boxing bags or a dummy or something like that because they didn't have any type of boxing. So it's, I think from Ben Askren to Tyron Woodley, it's a really big jump. And I'm very interested to see how Jake Paul does. But if he passes it, yeah, I think he's on to the races. And as you said about Conor McGregor, I don't think Conor McGregor's ever going to entertain this fight. It's just... I think if Conor McGregor beats Dustin Poirier, the Manny Pacquiao fight's potentially back on. And, if I think they're the type of fights he's after, Jake Paul would be kind of a fight he takes when the career's over. There's nowhere else to go. Oh, I'll fight Jake Paul for a bunch of money. That's what that's what Floyd Mayweather has just done. There's no one else to fight. So he's fighting them. But Conor McGregor's a man with a lot of options. And even if he loses to Dustin Poirier, there's a lot of options on the table for him besides Jake Paul. So I just don't see him taking that fight.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen. I really don't want to see it. That'll pretty much wrap up boxing. Any last thoughts?
No. Chad Ochocinco, he looked really great for an amateur, and for a novice actually. And his opponent, it was a very well matched fight. So that they're the type of fight. Like, I don't mind these celebrity boxing fights, but you've got to match them correctly. And I just, why put Floyd Mayweather in with Logan Paul besides a bunch of money? And I know Logan's Floyd saying about feeding my family and things like that. He's got about, I seen the pre-show, he's got about 10 luxury cars in his garage, so he's not short of money. So I think that's a bit of a bullshit excuse for him. It's just pure greed. And as he's saying the whole week, it's a robbery. And I think the fans are being robbed of anyone who's paying for this. Obviously, if you're smart, you'll just stream it. But anyone who's paying for it, they're being robbed. And hopefully that's the last we see of Floyd. He seemed to be saying that might be the last of it. But, if he have another offer comes across his table and, he's feeling a bit like he needs a bit more money again, we'll probably see him again. But, yeah, some good fights in there. Jarrett Hurd, big upset loss against Arias. I really like the way Showtime did it. It slides it in with the genuine fight. So we had Arias against Hurd, which was a barn burner. So let's hope that a load of YouTubers and young people come over seeing that fight and now are boxing fans. That's the whole upside of this. We might get a load of new fans. And yeah, as I said, I like the way Showtime did it. It weren't thriller. It weren't a pure shit show. They did it professionally while mixing in the fun stuff. So yeah, I like the format. If they can just match them right, yeah. And I'm really looking forward to Tyron and Jake Paul now.
Couldn't agree with you more. We'll jump onto the UFC. We had UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Sakai. The main event was one of the more entertaining fights on the card, and it wasn't that entertaining. I didn't think this card was too great. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. What did you think of the card overall?
Yeah, no, it didn't really deliver, did it? I think a lot of them. We had that one good fight, but besides that, there weren't a lot to talk about. There's a couple of standout performances, but nothing like No, it just weren't the best, was it? I was talking it up actually when we spoke last time. I was saying, "Oh, this is actually a good card with lots of things that I'm looking forward to on this," but they just didn't deliver. I'm sure we'll get to them later, but we'll start with the main event. And I think Rozenstruik just did what he had to do there. He threw, which was great. Against Cyril Gane, he looked terrible. He looked shot shy. He looked all these things. So it was great to see him, going after it and securing that knockout. And he's back in there now. He's back in the mix.
And yeah, like you said, the changes he made were so evident. From the second the fight started, he took the front foot, he walked forward, he didn't go backwards. That kind of seemed to be his problem. I guess earlier in his career, like the Arlovsky fight and stuff, he was going backwards and he was still getting knockouts. But for the most of his fights, when he's going backwards, he's been losing the fight. That's exactly what happened against Gain. That's what happened against Ngannou, if you want to take anything from that short little sequence there. So when he goes forward, I think it's best for him. And his ability to shut someone's lights out is just really impressive. He barely tagged the dude with that left hook when he was like walking forward, like chasing him, and he put him down. So if he can do that to Sakai, who's shown to be pretty durable, let's not forget he's only got 3 losses, and this is his first knockout loss in quite a while from memory. What his last loss was submission to... Was it submission or TKO? It was TKO, right, for over him?
It was on the floor, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was elbows on the floor, I believe.
Yeah, TKO it was. That's his first knockout loss, actually. So, really good from Rozenstruik. I think he did what he had to do. I thought he had the advantage going in, and to make a statement like this against Sakai, who, as we've just mentioned, has not been an easy fight for anyone so far. I think it's a big thing, especially after his last fight where Rozenstruik really didn't look great at all. I don't think Cyril Gane, particularly did anything special to beat him. He beat himself in there, and he didn't let it happen. 2 fights in a row to get a main event off the back of that. He's a very lucky man as well. So I think he really took advantage, and he'll go on and he'll fight someone in the top 5 now.
Yeah, you'd think so. I don't know who that name would be. I'd like to say Blades. Do you think that's a reasonable one?
Blades seems the most likely to me, unless Stipe wants to stay busy. But I think he'll be happy sitting on the sidelines, and everyone else is matched up. So Rozenstruik against Blades, that's the fight I want to see.
Okay, we'll jump to co-main event then, which was another heavyweight fight against Walt Harris and Marcin Tybura. Watching this one, it was quite sad actually, because Harris is a machine, and you look at the Overeem fight as well. He injured Overeem early, he injured Tybura early, he went for the kill, he saw red, and it ended up being his downfall in both fights. In this one, he just went forward, got caught, clinched up, got taken down, and knocked out, right? Did he get KO'd or did he get submitted? He got KO'd, right?
Yeah, TKO'd, yeah.
Yeah.
It's Tybura. I expect this fight to play out exactly how it played out, but I expected Walt to actually get the finish. I'm very impressed by Tybura's ability to take a punch, but there is levels to this game, and Walt Harris is a certain level. Greg Hardy is a certain level. Once he jumps up and let's say he fights Rozenstruik, he's not going to be able to survive that barrage. He's not, these upper echelon guys. So there's definitely things he can work on, but from what we've seen, there's only good things to say because he took a punch well. He survived a couple of flurries. He got the fight to the floor, and then once he gets the fight to the floor, people just seem to give up, because I can't knock him out. And he weren't doing particularly a lot of damage, but he was just tapping him on the head. And when someone as big as Tybura keeps repeatedly hitting in the head, the fight's going to come to an end. So, yeah, very impressive. I think that's 5 in a row for him now. And I'd like to see him step him up, but I hope when he does step it up, he understands that this is heavyweight. These are the baddest men on the planet, and you can't be taking too many shots because he's going to get hurt against someone, and it could potentially be in his next fight because I'd expect him to go and challenge one of the bigger names in the division now.
Yeah, I don't know who it would be right now, but I assume we'll get a loser from one of these big fights coming up. I believe Volkov and Gaines coming up shortly. Maybe the loser of that one.
Yeah, let's take a look at the rankings. He's still not got the name as he Tybura. I think he's a lot of people like him and like what he's doing, but I don't think he's ready for a main event or anything like that yet. So I'm just thinking who we could slip him on a card next to.
Who are they building?
Take a look. Where have they gone? Right, heavyweight. Okay, so you got that Shamal guy. Sakai actually coming off a loss wouldn't be a bad fight.
Yep.
Sakai, Chris Dorcas, you could give him any of the young guns as well. Tom Aspinall's 13 now. I think there's a few good fights. I think Dorcas has got a fight, but Tom Aspinall hasn't, I don't think, right now. So I think they're planning on going to, they keep saying they're planning on going to London on September 4th now. Yep. So Tom Aspinall against Tybura in London. I think Tybura's Polish, so he's European. It's an easy travel for him. I like that fight.
Okay, we'll move on. Before that, we had middleweights Roman Dalidsie versus Loriano Staropoli. Staropoli, I feel like I said that right. Anyway, what did you think of this fight?
I didn't think much of it. It was I think I was zoning out for this one. It was a from memory. It was particularly boring. Am I right?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. It wasn't a very entertaining fight at all. If I had to ask me to break down the fight, I wouldn't be able to do it because I just can't remember if anything of substance happened in the rounds. So I'm glad this is a uniform thing. I'm glad I'm not the only one who couldn't really remember anything for this fight because it's been sad.
No, it just when these fights happen and it's getting late. Obviously, this was a nice early card for us, or early-ish in the UK. So, but then these fights come out, and there's some reason I'm just like, nope. I'll start playing with my phone. I'll start doing anything other than watching the fights if it's that bad. And I think the most interesting thing has been the post-fight exchange between the fighters because, sorry, what was that guy's name again? Strapoli.
Yep.
He came out and kind of said, just bashing Dalidsie for the way he fought and saying let's do a rematch because this was a late notice fight, I think, for Strapoli. And yeah, I think he didn't like the way his opponent fought, so I don't think he's gonna get a rematch. But Dalidsie did what he needed to do. I think he was just coming off his first loss in the UFC. Just get back in the win column, get the momentum going again. Obviously, he's probably not made any new fans from that fight, but it's it was a good win, and on to the next one.
All right, and we had the best fight of the night right before that between Santiago Ponzinibbio and Miguel Baeza, a fight that we were both quite interested to see how it played out. Undefeated prospect taking on a guy that was meant to be the next up-and-coming guy in the UFC, coming off a knockout loss. But Ponzinibbio looked really good in this fight. Baeza looked really good in this fight. Baeza's first round was incredible, but Ponzinibbio really took over in those last two. Is that what you saw?
Yeah, I think I'm really, I'm happy for Ponzinibbio. After everything he's been through, the injuries, not getting a win since 2018, coming back to a fight that I thought was, with all due respect, something of a gimme fight. I thought he was above that level. He gets absolutely chinned. It seems like another loss here, his career could be over, and then he thrown to someone like Miguel Baeza, who 11-0, a really fun prospect. He looked sensational against Matt Brown. I think that was his last fight. So a lot of things going against Santiago, plus a tough first round, and he still manages to pull it out the bag. So yeah, credit to him, and he's back in the mix now because that's a really good win against a good prospect. And there was obviously no signs of a weak chin or anything like that after his last knockout loss. So yeah, really happy, really fun fight, good fight. People are talking fight of the year. I'm not quite sure on that one, but it was good, and I'm very glad to see Santiago back in the win column.
Yeah, I don't know about fight of the year, but it definitely was a pretty rowdy fight. Probably by far the best fight on this card. There's no competition. But yeah, I'll throw it to you if you want to pick out any other fights to talk about. There's none that stick out to me as it stands. Maybe the performance from Montana De La Rosa against Lipski.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. She bought an absolute beating on Lipski, didn't she? I've seen the post-fight pictures of Lipski. It looked in a bad way, and it's a really good win for De La Rosa. What's that for now? She had the draw in the last one. Yeah, she's a live one in that division. Is that the what division is that? Flyweight or flyweight?
Yeah, flyweight.
As I always say, these girls are flyweight. They're all so evenly matched, and on the day, anyone can beat anyone. So De La Rosa, although she's got a patchy record, I think it's 2-1-1 right now. Things could have gone the other way. It doesn't take a lot at this level. So that I love it when these girls come out, and as we've seen with Esparza the other week, where they just come out and they be dominant because so often these fights are really close, and we get a lot of split decisions, or you don't know who's won. So when they come out and make these statement performances, it's really exciting. So it's worth shouting out De La Rosa for that one.
Yeah, 100%. Prelims. I know I didn't get to catch the prelims, but I know there was some controversy, I believe, between Tanner Boser and Ilir Latifi, maybe on the judge's decision.
Yeah, it's one of them fights. I think it was one of them fights where not a lot happened again, and Latifi, grounded it out. I expected them to be quite more clear in this one. In all honesty, I expected them to really dominate Tanner Boser, but he weren't able to do that, and we went to decision. And I think I think that Tanabosa is not a happy man with the decision. So I'm not really sure who I had in that one, but I don't think that was the greatest fight either. Then on the undercard, we had a really big upset. Amir Khani was meant to. Who was Amir Khani meant to fight? Remember we were talking about it?
Yeah, I'm blanking, but I do remember.
Nate Launder.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously last time we spoke, I said he's out. In comes LowKick, and we didn't really have much to say because we don't really know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
We do now. He's big upset win against Amir Khan. He's a really good fighter. And then before that, unfortunately, Mason Jones was deprived of his first octagon win. I think he looked fantastic early against Alan Patrick. Accident eye poke brings an end to the fight, and we have to wait for that. But I think he looked really good, and a lot of people saying Patrick took the easy way out, but it's easy for some people to say online when you're not getting poked in the eye and punched in the face at the same time. So yeah, I'm sure Mason will be back sooner rather than later, probably on that London card, and I'm sure he'll get that first win.
Yeah, you'd think so. That'd make sense for him to come back on that one. And hopefully you can be there and cover it in person. Wouldn't that be nice?
Hopefully.
All right, cool. We'll move on to news then. And yeah, just a couple of things and we'll wrap it up. First thing I want to bring up is some comments from Dan Hooker. He said he wants to fight either Tony Ferguson or Beneil Dariush next. I think the Ferguson one makes a lot more sense. Do you want to see that fight?
Yeah, I prefer that than Dariush. I think Dariush should not really be looking at Dan Hooker right now. I think he's earned a spot and he should be looking up the rankings rather than down. But Tony Ferguson, it's all about what he wants to do. I think there's fun fights for him at welterweight. I think, in terms of let's assume Diaz loses this next fight. I think Diaz against Tony Ferguson a real fun one. I think Nick Diaz against Tony Ferguson fun one. Even Masvidal. So I would prefer Ferguson to move up to 170 at this point. But if he sticks around at 155, I think that's probably the fight to make against Dan Hooker.
And look, I was listening to Brad Riddell on Submission Radio, that's what it was, and he was talking and he was saying that in the kickboxing camp, if I can speak correctly, they have had the game plan for Ferguson for a while, he reckons. Before Ferguson was losing these recent fights he's lost, they reckon they already had the game plan to beat him. And the idea was he doesn't like getting hit, walk him down and hit him. Which makes a lot of sense because you look at Gaethje's fight, that's what he did and he was able to do it. But if they've had this game plan, they've been preparing for Ferguson for a while, you've got to think Dan Hooker's got a pretty familiar idea of his game and what he's getting himself into making this call out. So I would be interested to see it. I don't know who I'd pick. Early pick would probably be Hooker, even though I'm a massive Tony Ferguson fan. I just think recency after seeing their latest fights, even Hooker's loss to Poirier, it holds up a bit better than Ferguson's recent losses. So yeah, who would you take in that fight if they were booked today?
Well, I don't really like that game plan from Brad Riddell. I think Tony Ferguson absolutely loves getting punched in the face. I'm not sure where they've got that from. He lives for it, doesn't he? He lives for the carnage, and I think that would be the funnest part about this fight. Obviously people have found a way to beat Ferguson lately, and it's getting him to the ground and holding him there and things like that. So even in the Gaethje fight, he was live in that just because he had the punches chance, and he even dropped him in that round 3 or round 2, I think it was. So yeah, I'd give him a chance against Hooker if that's the plan, to go in and swing with him and turn it into war. I think it becomes a 50-50 fight. So but it's hard to pick Ferguson at the minute because he has looked a shadow of himself. Hooker, he had a bad night against Chandler, but before that he looked really good against Dustin Poirier. He gave him a really tough fight. So I would go Hooker just because he still seems to be at the peak of his powers, and Ferguson seems to be past it right now.
No, I agree with you. Last one I've got, and then we'll see if you have any. Santiago Ponzinibbio, who we just spoke about, wants Luque, Stephen Thompson, or Gilbert Burns loser next. I think that's pretty much shooting for the stars there. I don't think he gets any of those, but what are your thoughts on those call-outs?
I don't mind it. Yeah, he's still got a good name, and I'm not sure how old he is. I'm guessing he's like mid-30s at the minute. Yeah, 34. Mm-hmm. So it is kind of a, get your skates on. So I think he's got the name. He's headlined before against, some big names. So I don't think he needs to work his way through the division. I think he's done enough to earn, one of the top 10 guys. It's just who do you match him against. So, Wonderboy Gilbert Burns, maybe the loser of that. I don't mind that at all.
I'll tell you who makes more sense. I think the name that makes more sense to me is Jeff Neal. He's coming off that loss to Magny. He was ranked in the top 10 before that. I think this makes a lot of sense. You can't put Ponzinibbio ahead of Li Jinlang, I believe his name is, if I said that correctly, I hope. You can't put him ahead of that guy because he just lost that guy, so it doesn't make sense to put him above. So I feel like a fight with Jeff Neal, would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think Kamzat as well is if Kamzat's looking for an opponent. That makes sense, obviously you don't jump the rankings too far, but it's a big fight nonetheless. I think there's some big fights for him in there. Bilal Muhammad against Damian Maia, whoever wins that potentially. There's lots going on, and I don't think he maybe jumps as high as a Stephen Thompson or someone like that, but I expect him to be in a big fight on a pay-per-view or in a co-main event, potentially even a main event next. So I think he's got the name. It's just and now he's got the win and the performance. It's all systems go, but I'm not sure where Jeff Neal is right now. I think the plan was to take some time off for him after his last performance. So yeah, really exciting times. Glad to see Ponzinibbio back.
Okay, and I found one last thing, and we'll wrap it up, I suppose, and that is Paulo Costa has withdrawn for his... Well, according to him, it wasn't already... He hadn't signed, you reckon? So the rumoured bout between Costa and Cannonier has now been cancelled, and Kelvin Gastelum is stepping in to take on Cannonier in August, which initially I was like, Gastelum, why are you taking another short notice fight? But after thinking about it, it's in August. This isn't short notice. He's getting 8 weeks. I actually think this is a pretty good fight to watch, and I would probably favour Gastelum against Cannonier. What do you think?
Yeah, I like Gastelum's attitude. He's taking these chances when they come, and obviously it was really stacked against him. Robert Whittaker is clearly the number one contender. He's the best fighter besides Israel Adesanya at middleweight. So he did on a week's notice. It was tough for him, but this one is he's getting a full camp. Jared Cannonier, he's not. I don't think he's a world beater. I think this is a very good fight for Gastelum. Another main event, another big payday. And yeah, as a Costa, I think the UFC do have a habit of announcing fights before they're done in terms of a pressure thing. But I don't think Costa's in much of a position, is he really, to be demanding anything? And I think he needs to get back to fighting. And he's making a lot of noise, and it's all negative. Since that loss, it's all being excuses and withdrawing from fights. There's been no positive signs from Costa's camp that he's recognizing his loss, he's making effective changes, he can't wait to get back in there. It's all I've got the flu or whatever he had, and now it's you're not paying me enough money. Cynical people will say he's not too interested in fighting right now, but maybe there's a bigger issue with pay as well. So I'm just as happy to see Kelvin Gastelum against Jared Cannonier as would be against Paulo Costa, and I don't think he is whatever battle he's got going on with the UFC. I don't think he's going to be winning it anytime soon because he's coming off a terrible loss. And although it was to the champ, he looked terrible in that fight. So I don't think he's got much room for maneuver.
Yeah, and I mean, for Gastelum, if he gets a win here, he probably puts himself back in that top 5 again. What's he ranked now? Maybe 8 or 9? I think he was 6 when he fought Whittaker. Maybe he was 8. But he's definitely in the top 10, and I expect him to, if he gets a win over Cannonier, who is for some weird reason still in the top 5. I mean, he hasn't fought since he lost to Whittaker. So to me, it's kind of odd that he's still in the top 5. If Gastelum get a win here, he puts himself right back into where he was before he fought Whittaker. So it'll be interesting to see. Anything else you want to grab before we wrap it up, or we're done there?
Just the news about Ariel Helwani's leaving ESPN, which is I think it's quite a big one because they're linking him to a channel I've never even heard of, Action Network or something like that. So I think he's produced some great content for ESPN over the years, and he's obviously the biggest name in MMA media. So it's going to be interesting to see where ESPN take the content from here and what Ariel does, because wherever he goes, it's where the athletes tend to follow. So yeah, interesting times for us in the business to see what he does next and what ESPN do next.
Well, to me, it's if I'm in Ariel's position, I feel like maybe there's something I'm missing here, but why does he not go independent? He's the reason that people are watching, right? Like, I guess ESPN's huge, but a lot of the people that tune in on YouTube are watching because they know Ariel and they want to see his interviews and his content, right? So if he went independent and ran his own thing, I feel like that would be the optimal way if in terms of making money. Do you think that is like a better option, or do you think it's good to go with one of these networks? What do you think?
think it's just guaranteeing yourself money, and from what I'm hearing is ESPN paid him a big wage. So like for anyone in MMA media to hear what he's earning, it's it's nice to know that someone's getting paid that well. And I'd guess that when he moves on again, he'll be getting paid even more, like even better. So I think it being with one of these companies takes the stress out of, when you've got a young family, as Ariel does, it takes the stress out of, how much am I going to earn this month, and just doing deals and sponsorship and all these things, and things can go away quite easily. So I think it's just for security. I think it's a smart move to stick with one of these type of companies. And I just don't know. Do you know what the Action Network is? I don't know.
No, never heard of it.
I don't think it's one of the big American outlets either.
So.
But I'm sure they're paying him a bunch of money, and I know he hasn't confirmed it yet, but that's what the New York Post was saying. And yeah, interesting times. I think he's the best in the game, and I think the one with DC and Chael Sonnen's been great. He's carried on the MMA Hour kind of on ESPN. I think he's done really good work. And ESPN, if you're going to be in MMA and you're going to be hosting the big show, you want the biggest journalists and the biggest reporters there. So it's going to be interesting to see who they replace him with.
Or maybe they just get Brett and Mark to do more of the same stuff, cover what he was doing as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they offer me $300,000 to go work there, and I'll move my way over to the US. But without that, that'll pretty much wrap us up there. Anything else?
No, but on to the next one. Big card this weekend, isn't it? We've got UFC 263. I'm particularly looking forward to it. I think it's one of the best cards of the year so far. We've got, 3 huge fights, 2 rematches, and we've got Nate Diaz coming back. So I think there's going to be a lot of traction. I think a lot of people are going to be interested. And as a fellow Englishman, I'm very happy to see Leon Edwards finally get a big fight, finally get what he deserves. And I expect him to go out there and make a statement and potentially even finish Diaz in this one.
That will be an interesting fight, and we'll preview all that card probably on Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, somewhere in the middle of the week. So keep an eye out for that on the channel. But thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Make sure to subscribe to the LowKick MMA YouTube channel for all the latest news, event previews, and interviews with some of the biggest stars in MMA.